Thought I would give a quick update on something I'm thinking a lot about at the moment. Yesterday I had an MRI scan and I decided to have it without contrast for the first time. The contrast that I've been having is the same that most patients will be having for head and neck cancers, which is gadolinium. Gadolinium is a heavy metal that can be highly toxic to humans if it's not fully excreted. Now, the reason I requested for this scan to not have the contrast dye, the gadolinium, is because I have been doing lots of reading over time, and over the past decade it has been apparent that not all of the gadolinium is excreted, and there are deposits left in tissues, including the brain. I also read in another study that there is, in brain tumor biopsies, they have actually been able to see gadolinium in brain tumors. So yeah, that just made me think maybe I need to think about this a bit more. And it's difficult. It's a difficult dilemma because the contrast dye allows you to see a lot more of the vasculature and the signaling changes when you compare scan to scan. And it just allows you to see a lot more on the scan. That's what it does, is contrast. And then there's the other thing of just that I'm looking at, I'm looking into deuterium depleted water, because cancer is very sensitive to deuterium. So deuterium depleted water can actually help to deplete deuterium from the cells. Yeah, so I'm looking into that and other ways of depleting deuterium. So one of the main mechanisms of the ketogenic diet is it's actually a deuterium depletion diet. It's not something that many people have discussed, apart from researchers that I know who are focused on deuterium depletion therapies, if you like, or foods or water. So I'm looking into this. I'm looking at naturally deuterium depleted water from areas of altitude where it's naturally depleted, not to the same level that it would be from sources you can get from labs that produce deuterium depleted water. Unfortunately, it's very expensive to purchase, but the potential is huge. There are other methods of deuterium depletion. So you could have you could partake in cold thermogenesis, cold-induced thermogenesis. So you could have ice baths, that kind of thing. Which, yeah, I'm looking into doing more of. I've tried it a couple of times, but not properly. Just cold immersion therapies, cold immersion therapies, if you can call it that, if that's an appropriate term to use. So looking into that more. I've just seen my scan using a CD. Didn't really look much different from before, but obviously there are things that you might not be able to see without contrast. So is it useful, is it not? That's the question. But whether it is or not, I think it's a good idea to look at your GFR, your glomerular filtration rate, which just means your glomerular, yeah, it's a word I can never say. But all it is it's a figure relating to the efficiency of your kidneys to excrete the gadolinium. So if I had to have it, if I have this meeting on Monday, and the result is that I would benefit more from having the contrast, I would make sure that I excrete as much as possible. So I would have testing to see. I have had a GFR test to see the efficiency of my kidneys. You can just get that from your GP. It's a free test. So I had that, and it's a good. My kidneys are very efficient, so they filter it quite nicely. However, I could. I haven't ever had an assessment of my urine excretion over 24 hours, which would give a better indication of how much gadolinium might be retained in my tissues. So that's what I would have if I had to have the scan. And then I would look at methods of chelating agents that I could take that may help me to get rid of the excess gadolinium. And then I would have tests again to see if that's fully excreted. Hopefully. It's something that's very difficult to get rid of, and it's also something that is accumulative. So if you have lots of scans, if you're a long-term survivor, it can be a problem, because you can get toxicity from it, obviously. And also the fact that they've found gadolinium in tumours, and the gadolinium is high deuterium, it just makes you think, and it makes you think as well about deuterium depleted water, because the way that MRI scans work is it's diffusion of water molecules in the brain, and then it generates an image. I think that's a good way of describing it. I'm not the best sometimes at describing these things, but that's kind of how they generate an image, because it's high deuterium. So it would give that contrast to generate an image. So interesting. I've only just recently been researching all this information about deuterium, but it's huge. So yeah, I hope to do experiments with deuterium depleted water. I have some brain damage left, so I'm going to, it's only a small area, but it does still cause me some invisible disabilities, so I'm going to have more hyperbaric oxygen therapy, and I'm thinking of combining that with deuterium depleted water. Makes complete sense to me, because I kind of agree with the mitochondrial defect theory of cancer. So I try to make my mitochondria as healthy as possible, and water and oxygen are the two most important aspects of that. If you think about the electron transport chain, and how important water and oxygen, H2O molecules, and H2O. If you think about how important H2O and oxygen is for healthy mitochondria and just mitochondrial function in general, it makes sense that cellular water should be how deuterium depletion can change the water in your cells, and so that you can maintain healthy and efficient mitochondria. And fats provide lots of energy, so that's an efficient form of energy. And grass-fed animal fats can deplete deuterium, so it can cause thermogenesis. I think sun exposure can too. So full spectrum UV, full spectrum UV light. So yeah, lots to do, lots to look at, lots to research, lots of experiments to do. I'm actually feeling really good at the moment, so it's a good time to do it. That's another reason I didn't want the contrast, because straight after I have the contrast, I do feel it. I do feel symptoms of it, so that's kind of a red flag for me as well. So I have lots of work to do to look at possible alternatives. I have a meeting on Monday to discuss if it's actually beneficial having any scans without contrast. And if I do have it, then what we can do about it to minimize the damage over time, that accumulative potential damage. So, yes, lots to think about. And I'll try and update how it goes, let people know how it goes. But other than that, things are going really well, so that's it. And hope you have a good day and a good week, whatever time it is you're watching this.